The wind was cold and dry as it passed over the dusty red hills of the alien planet. Captain Elias stood alone in front of the grave. He had traveled across stars just to bury her here on her homeworld, under the strange blue moons she once called beautiful. The sky above was filled with strange stars, glowing in quiet silence. He lowered his head and placed a small metal flower on the grave. It was all he had left to give her. Her name was Lyra. She was not human, but she had a human soul. Or maybe something better. She had fought beside him during the war, saved his life more than once. And in the end, she had died in his arms, bleeding and smiling, whispering something he could never forget. Now he was here, whispering back, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," he said quietly. His voice broke in the middle. I should have been faster." He touched the stone marker, where her name was carved in both alien script and English. The translator device blinked weakly on his wrist, but he didn't need it. He knew what the words meant. Elias stayed for a while, just sitting in the red dust. The place was quiet, peaceful, far from the noise of war and the screaming memories that haunted him at night. He closed his eyes and remembered her laugh. It used to echo through the halls of the starship. Light and strange, a sound he never thought he would miss so much. When the wind picked up again, he stood slowly. He brushed dust from his jacket, gave the grave one last look, and whispered, "Goodbye, Lyra." Then he turned to walk away, but something made him stop. A sound, soft, like a breath. His heart jumped. He looked over his shoulder. No one was supposed to be there, but someone stood behind him. It was a woman, tall, slim, covered in a long cloak. Her face was half hidden in shadow, but her eyes, those eyes, they were glowing faint blue, just like Lyra's had. He stared, frozen in place. "Lyra?" he whispered. The figure didn't answer. She just stepped closer, slowly, as if walking through a dream. Then gently she reached out and touched his shoulder. Elias felt cold and heat at the same time. His body went stiff. His breath caught in his chest. That touch, it felt real. Alive, warm, not a ghost, not a hallucination. He turned quickly, grabbing her hand. "Who are you?" he asked, voice shaking. She pulled back, blinking like she was confused. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. He looked closer. Her skin had tiny glowing lines, tech lines, like implant scars. Her face looked exactly like Lyra's, but her expression was strange, empty, scared, and lost. "I buried you," Elias said, almost to himself. "I saw you die." The woman tilted her head, like she was trying to understand. Then she suddenly stepped back and fell to her knees. Her hands trembled, and her eyes flickered, like something inside her was broken or unfinished. Elias dropped beside her, reaching out. "Hey, it's okay, he said softly. "I won't hurt you." She looked up at him, lips moving again, still no sound, but a single tear rolled down her cheek, glowing softly. Was it her? Or a clone? A trick? Elias didn't know, but his heart was screaming that it was her. Somehow, in some impossible way, she had come back. He tapped his communicator. "This is Captain Elias. I need medevac," he said quickly. "Found something. Know someone." The woman slowly rested her head against his chest. He could feel her heartbeat. It was real, strong, and steady. He wrapped his arms around her gently. Not knowing what else to do, behind them, the grave stood, still, untouched. And above, the alien skies kept watching in silence. The war was over, but a new mystery had just begun, one Elias wasn't ready for. But he wouldn't leave her again. Not this time. Not that she was alive. Asterisk, the medevac ship arrived just as the first twin moons rose above the red hills. Elias stayed close to the silent woman, his arm around her as if letting go would break the moment. She didn't speak, didn't resist, but her eyes never left. His face, they carried something heavy, like a question that refused to be asked. The medical team scanned her, confused by the results. Her DNA matched Lyra's exactly, but her brain patterns didn't. There were foreign implants in her skull, ancient, unregistered tech glowing faintly with power. Elias stood over the med table, watching every move the doctors made. "She's alive," the head medic said, voice low with disbelief. "But she shouldn't be." They tried to communicate, but she didn't speak. She only followed Elias with her eyes, like a child seeing someone familiar but not knowing why. They placed her in a recovery room on the ship, and he stayed by the door, watching her sleep. He didn't sleep that night, not even for a moment, when she woke. She tried to stand but stumbled. Elias caught her before she hit the floor. She looked up at him, her lips parting as if to speak. But again nothing came. Instead, she lifted her hand and pressed her fingers to his chest, exactly where his heart beat. "You're not a ghost," he whispered. "I know you're not." She blinked slowly, her hand resting there like she was trying to remember something deep. Then she started drawing something in the air with her finger, shapes and symbols. Elias recognized them. They were from her people's language. She drew a circle, a triangle, and then a line straight through them. He stared at the shapes, remembering them from a report he once read about a banned research project, one that spoke of memory transfer, cloning, and ancient alien tech that could capture the soul. But it had all been buried, shut down, erased from public record. If what she was drawing was true, then maybe Lyra had been part of it. Elias pulled up his old files, hacking deeper into the system than he was allowed to go. He found a name, Project Rebirth, and a location deep under the surface of a small moon orbiting her homeworld. Same moon where she had once said she felt closest to the stars. He looked at her again, and she gave a slow nod. Her finger pointed at the screen, right at the coordinates she remembered, even if only a piece. "I'll take you there," he said, voice quiet but firm. "Whatever happened to you, we'll find the truth." The ship changed course without permission. Elias didn't care if he broke orders. She was alive, or something like alive, and that was all that mattered. As they flew through the dark between moons, she sat by the window, eyes fixed on the stars. Elias watched her reflection in the glass, and for a moment, he saw the woman he had loved. But something else was there too, a flicker in her eyes. Like distant lightning behind clouds, she turned to him slowly and placed her hand on his once more. This time, her fingers moved with purpose, slowly forming a word in the air. The symbols glowed faintly as they hovered, and Elias recognized the meaning. Home. He swallowed hard, his chest tight. If this was her home, then maybe she still remembered what they were to each other. Or maybe she only remembered fragments, moments, feelings. Either way, he would not leave her behind. Not now. The ship approached the moon, gray and silent, with no cities, no lights, just old dust and forgotten secrets buried deep. As they landed, a strange hum filled the cabin. She stood before he could stop her, her steps unsure but determined. They opened the hatch, and the cold air of the moon poured in. She stepped out first, moving like someone guided by memory. Elias followed close, heart pounding in his ears, and then she stopped, staring at a flat part of the ground, empty to his eyes. She pressed her hand against the air, and something shimmered. A hidden door began to open, carved in ancient metal, hissing softly as dust scattered into the sky. He looked at her, and for the first time she smiled, not wide, not sure, but enough to shake him to his core. Whatever was buried in this place was waiting for her return. And now, for the first time in a long time, Elias was afraid, not of her, but of what they might find next, because if she could come back from the grave, what else could rise behind her? The air inside the hidden chamber was dry and heavy. As soon as they stepped in, the walls began to glow. Lines of ancient alien script lit up like veins under skin. Elias felt something shift in his chest, like they had just crossed into another world. The woman beside him didn't hesitate. Her feet moved on the metal floor as if she had walked here before, but she had never told him about this place. Not once. He followed closely, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. There were no guards, no doors, just smooth dark hallways leading into deeper silence. Then a hallway widened, revealing a massive round chamber filled with pods, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each one sealed shut, each one glowing dim blue from within. Elias stepped forward and looked inside one of the pods. His breath caught inside was a face just like hers. Another Lyra, sleeping, frozen in time. He turned to her, shocked, but she was already moving toward the center of the room. In the middle stood a terminal, old but still active. She placed her hand on it, and the floor trembled gently beneath them. The pods made a soft humming sound, like they were waking up. Elias stepped beside her, his hand slowly reaching for his blaster, just in case. "Are these all clones?" he asked quietly. She looked at him and nodded once. He wanted to ask more, but the terminal suddenly spoke in an old alien voice. The translation device on his wrist struggled to keep up, flickering with static. "Subject 17 has returned." It said, "Memory sync, incomplete. Warning, critical instability detected." Elias looked at her, Subject 17. That was her, and something was wrong with her. Something dangerous. She turned away from him, shaking, as if the words hurt her somehow. She stumbled, her legs buckling, and he caught her before she hit the ground again. "Easy," he whispered, holding her tight. "I've got you." He helped her sit near the terminal, and her hands moved quickly over the glowing surface. More files appeared in the air, images, data logs, memory patterns. They all told the same story. Project Rebirth was never about healing. It was about replacing. The real Lyra had died. That part was true. But the scientists had taken her body, her brain, her memories, and made copies. Copy after copy. Each one failing, breaking, going mad until her Subject 17, the only one to survive this long, but even she wasn't complete. Her memories were scattered, her emotions unstable, her body linked to the old machine that kept her alive, and now, by coming here, she had reconnected to the system again. Elias felt his throat tighten. Was she still the same person he loved? Or just a shadow built from leftover pieces? She reached for him, her hand trembling. He held it tightly, refusing to let go. "I don't care what they call you," he said. "You're still hurting me." She looked into his eyes, and for a second, something clear passed through her face. A spark, maybe even a tear. Then the terminal changed again. A red light flashed across the room. Warning sirens began to echo through the halls. "Containment breach," the voice said. "Subject's awakening." One of the pods hissed open. Steam pouring out. Another Lyra stepped forward, but her eyes were empty, her movements sharp and violent. Then another pod opened, and another. All of them walking like machines, looking exactly like her, but with no soul inside. Elias pulled his blaster and stood in front of her. She stayed low, clutching her chest, shaking as if her mind was fighting something. The clones surrounded them slowly, heads tilting, blank expressions watching him. And then the first one lunged, fast as lightning. He fired, the shot blasting it back into the wall. But more came, crawling over the floor and walls like a swarm. He grabbed her hand, pulled her up and shouted, "We're leaving now." They ran through the dark hall. Alarms screaming, lights flashing red, behind them. The clones followed, silent and deadly. She turned as they reached the exit and pressed her hand to the wall. The ancient door groaned and began to close. Elias covered her with his body as the last clone tried to reach through. The door slammed shut, cutting it off. Silence returned, broken only by their heavy breaths. She collapsed again, this time in his arms. And for the first time since she came back, he heard her whisper one word: "Help." His heart broke all over again. Because whatever she was now, she was scared, and only he could save her from what they had turned her into. Asterisk, the storm outside wasn't made of wind or rain, it was made of silence. A silence so deep it crawled under Elias's skin like ice. They had escaped the underground lab, but something had followed them back. Something invisible, but watching, always watching. The ship's systems flickered the moment they took off from the moon. Lights dimmed, then pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyra, if she still was. Lyra sat in the corner of the medbay, arms wrapped around her knees. She hadn't spoken again since that one word. But she didn't need to. Her eyes said enough. Elias scanned the ship for tracking signals, found none. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something had been let loose. Like the lab wasn't just a place but a lock, and now the lock was broken. She twitched suddenly, her hand jerking toward her temple. The glowing scars on her skin brightened for a second, then faded. Her body shook as if she was fighting something inside her own mind. Elias rushed to her side, grabbing her wrist. "Gently, you're okay," he whispered. "You're safe." Her breath was fast and shallow, her lips moving in silence. He leaned closer, trying to hear, and then, with no warning, her voice burst out, not soft, not broken, but loud and strange. "Not alone," she said, eyes wide. "They're inside." Elias stepped back, heart pounding. "Who's inside?" he asked, but she clutched her head again, crying out in pain. He activated the med scanner, and what he saw made his stomach twist. There was another signal inside her, another brainwave, not hers, moving through her like a shadow, and it was growing stronger. He called the AI, told it to isolate her in a medical shield field. But before the field could activate, the ship lights went completely black. Then every screen lit up with her face. But wrong, twisted and grinning. "Hello, Captain," the voice said, but it wasn't hers. It was deeper, distorted, like several voices speaking at once. "Did you think you could take her back and no one would notice?" Elias drew his blaster, aiming at the screen. "What are you?" He growled. The image laughed, cold and echoing. "We are what's left," it said. "We are the failed ones, the broken ones, the forgotten copies." She opened the door, and now we're free. He ran back to her, but she was floating. Now her body lifted from the floor, glowing, her eyes rolled back, her mouth open in a silent scream, and from her chest, light burst outward, like a signal being sent across space. Elias grabbed her, pulled her down, held her tightly. "Fight it," he whispered. "You're stronger than them." Her body burned with heat. His skin blistered where they touched, but he didn't let go. He refused, then suddenly, it stopped. She went limp in his arms, breathing fast, skin cold. The lights returned, the face on the screen vanished, and everything went still. He carried her to the cryobd, placed her inside, and activated the stasis slowly. She looked peaceful again, but he could see the flickers under her eyelids. She was still dreaming, still fighting. He turned away and walked to the command deck, pulled up the nearest star chart, and set course for the only place that might hold answers, an abandoned station orbiting a dead sun, one built by her people long ago, one that had been shut down after the war. Rumors called it the Mind Forge, where souls were copied and memories stored like files. If there was any place that could explain what she had become, it was there. He sat back, gripping the controls. He didn't know if she'd survive this journey. He didn't know if he would, but he would not lose her again. Not to the war, not to death, not to the thing wearing her face. She had asked for help, and he had promised. Now it was time to keep that promise, even if it meant stepping into hell itself. The station appeared in the darkness like a ghost ship. No lights, no signals, just metal bones circling a dying sun. Captain Elias stared at it from the bridge, hands tight around the controls. It wasn't welcoming, it wasn't safe, but it was the only place left, the Mind Forge, forgotten by most, sealed after the war. They said it was a place where thoughts could live forever, where memories were copied, twisted, and stored like broken dreams. Now it waited for them in silence, like it had been expecting her return. Lyra still lay inside the cryobd, breathing, slow and shallow, but her body twitched from time to time, like something inside her was trying to escape. Elias touched the side of the glass, his voice quiet. "We're here, Lyra," he said. "Whatever they did to you, we'll end it here." The ship docked with a loud metallic groan. The airlock opened, and Elias stepped into the dark, holding a rifle in one hand and a flare in the other. The hallway was long and narrow, filled with frozen dust floating in. The air like ash. He could hear nothing but his own breath. Then came the whisper, not from around him, but from inside his head. His steps slowed, and he turned quickly, but no one was there. Still, the voice repeated, soft and strange. "You brought her back," it said. "Why?" Elias ignored it and moved forward, following the trail of old signs on the walls. Each corridor led deeper, past empty rooms and shattered glass. And then he saw it, a glowing panel still powered after all these years. He touched it, and the walls opened silently, revealing a round chamber filled with memory tanks. He stepped inside, the air warm and humming. In the center stood a device, shaped like a chair but covered in glowing lines and cables. A memory bridge one used to connect minds directly. He stared at it, realizing what he had to do. If Lyra's mind was still inside her body trapped, fighting, then someone had to go in and pull her back, but it came with a risk. To enter her mind meant leaving his own body behind, even if just for minutes, and if something went wrong, he might never come back. He called the ship system, told it to bring her down gently. The cryob floated into the chamber, and the glass hissed open. She looked so peaceful, too peaceful. Her skin still glowed faintly under the machines. Lights. Elias sat in the chair, placed the helmet on his head, cables locked into place. Lights blinked red. Then the world around him shattered like glass. He fell through time, through space, through memory. And then everything turned white. He opened his eyes and found himself standing in a quiet forest. But the trees were made of metal, and the sky was covered in circuits. In the distance, a girl sat alone by a frozen stream, her back to him, hair flowing like starlight. "Lyra," he whispered. She didn't move. He stepped closer, careful not to scare her. When he reached her side, he saw her face. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and her eyes were empty. "I don't know who I am," she said slowly. "They took me apart, and I can't find the pieces." He knelt beside her, took her hand. "You're not alone," he said. "You're still you, no matter what they did." Suddenly, the forest began to crack. The sky shattered, and black smoke poured from the edges. Figures walked out of the shadows, clones, broken versions of her, eyes filled with hate. They circled slowly, whispering lies. "She's a copy. She's a mistake. She doesn't belong anywhere." Elias stood, shielding her behind him. "Get away from her," he growled. "She's not yours." But the smoke rose higher. The ground broke open, and something bigger came, a massive form made of all the failed clones, twisted together into one. It growled in a dozen voices. Reaching for them, Lyra screamed, clutching his arm. "Don't let it take me," she begged. "I won't," Elias said, tightening his grip. "You hear me? I won't." With all his strength, he pulled her into his arms and shouted into the storm. "She's not broken, she's alive." The storm roared, the world shook, and then everything went dark. Elias opened his eyes back in the real world. Gasping for breath, Lyra sat up in the cryob, eyes wide, chest rising fast. She was awake, fully, truly awake. And she looked at him, not with confusion, but with memory. "Elias," she said, her voice soft but real. And for the first time he smiled. He had brought her back, but something else had come through with them. Something that wasn't done yet. She woke up screaming. Not from fear, but from remembering. The cryob hissed open as Lyra bolted upright, gasping like someone pulled from deep water. Her fingers clutched the edge of the bed, eyes wild and glowing faint blue. Elias was already there, arms out, steady and ready. But the look she gave him wasn't just recognition, it was pain. "They're coming," she said, her voice hoarse. "They know I'm awake." Before he could speak, the ship's lights flickered again, but this time it wasn't random. A sharp alarm began to ring through the corridors. Not from inside the ship, but from outside. A sleek black vessel had arrived. No signal, no warning, just appeared out of warp space like a shadow cutting through time. Its weapons were already charged, aimed at them with cold purpose. "Elias, cursed under his breath and grabbed Lyra's hand. "We have to move," he said. She didn't argue. She simply followed, her steps fast and sure. But behind her calm, Elias saw the truth. Her body was failing again. Every step she took left a faint flicker of light behind, like she was burning out. He reached the control deck and slammed the emergency liftoff sequence. The Mindforge station broke its own docking clamps as his ship pulled away, but the black ship didn't fire. Instead, it followed slowly, like a predator not rushing the hunt. "What do they want?" he asked, staring at the sensors. Lyra's voice came quiet and low. "Me," she said. "Or what's left of me." She walked to the center of the room and pressed her hand to the console. For a moment, the lights in the room dimmed. Then, the ship obeyed her touch, unlocking an old route hidden deep in its memory. Coordinates lit up on the screen, coordinates to an ancient world not found on any map. Elias looked at her. "What is this place?" She turned slowly, and for the first time, he saw something behind her eyes that chilled him. "Where I was made," she said. "Where I was broken." The ship entered warp, and space twisted around them, but even inside the safety of the walls, Elias felt it, a cold pressure, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Lyra sat alone in the medbay, her eyes closed, her body shaking slightly. He stood nearby, watching her. "I don't know how much longer you have," he said gently. "Whatever we do next, it has to be fast." She nodded. "There's one final key," she whispered, "locked inside the mainframe where my memories were copied. They erased who I was. But the first version of me is still there." He didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to. If there was even one chance to make her whole again, he would take it, even if it meant going straight into enemy hands. As they approached the hidden world, the stars faded behind a black fog. The planet below was gray, smooth, almost lifeless, except for one tower rising from its surface, tall, cold, and humming with old power. A command center left behind by the creators of the clone project. As the ship landed, the black vessel landed beside them. Not a word came from it, not a single shot, just silence, like it was waiting for them to walk willingly into the lion's mouth. Elias looked at Lyra. She looked back with calm fire in her eyes. "This ends now," she said. He nodded, checking his weapon one last time. Together, they stepped out onto the strange gray soil. The doors of the tower opened by themselves. They walked through long white halls, guided by lights that followed their footsteps. No guards, no traps, just a soft hum growing louder the deeper they went. And then, they reached it, the core room, a giant chamber with a single device in the center, glowing red. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and inside it was her, another version of Lyra, standing in stasis, frozen mid-breath. "She's the original," Lyra whispered. "I was made from her body, but with someone else's mind." Elias stepped forward. "What happens if we wake her up?" Lyra placed her palm on the glass. "I don't know," she said, "but I have to try." She reached for the control pad, and the machine began to hiss. But then the lights exploded, and the door behind them slammed shut. A voice filled the room, cold and full of static. "Only one Lyra is allowed to live," and from the shadows, something stepped forward, not a clone, not a soldier, but the scientist who started it all. Still alive, still watching, and holding the kill switch in his hand. The man who stepped out of the dark was not supposed to exist. They had said he was dead, executed after the war, lost in the fires he had helped start. But here he stood, older, thinner, but with the same cold eyes that once looked at Lyra, not like a person, but like a project. "Dr. Kale," Lyra whispered, her voice cracking with memory and fear. The name hit Elias like a shock. This was the man who turned her into a ghost, the man who stole her life and trapped it in a machine. Dr. Kale didn't flinch, didn't blink. He walked slowly toward the stasis pod, watching the original Lyra inside like she was artwork. "You were never meant to last this long," he said without looking at them. "You were test number 17 nothing." More, Elias raised his weapon, but Kale didn't react. I should have destroyed you years ago, the doctor continued. But you surprised me. You survived. Lyra stepped forward, voice trembling but loud. You killed the real me, she said. You copied her soul and trapped it inside a broken body. You didn't bring me back, you erased me. Kale smiled faintly. I improved you, he said. No pain, no fear, just memory and obedience. Elias stepped beside her, voice low and sharp. She's not your creation anymore. She chose to live and I chose her. Kale tapped a device in his palm. The lights around the pod turned red. If you open that pod, he said coldly, you both die. Lyra's hands curled into fists, but instead of backing down, she turned to Elias, her eyes full of emotion, grief, anger, hope, and something deeper. She nodded once. I remember everything now, she whispered. Every test, every failure, every moment I thought I was less than human. But you showed me I was more. Without hesitation, she stepped toward the control panel. Kale raised the kill switch, but Elias fired first. The shot hit the device in Kale's hand, blasting it into sparks. The old man stumbled back, screaming in rage. Lyra's fingers flew over the panel, and the stasis pod began to open. The glass slid away, steam rising from the inside, and the original Lyra stepped out weak, blinking, but alive. She looked at the version of herself standing before her, and something passed between them. Not words, not thoughts, but understanding. They touched palms gently, and the room filled with light. Energy pulsed from their connection, shaking the walls. Kale screamed again. Backing away, covering his eyes, Elias pulled both of them close as the tower began to fall apart. The machine was collapsing, unable to handle two of the same soul. The whole lab groaned and cracked. It was ending finally. They ran through the crumbling halls, holding each other up. No longer broken, no longer alone, they reached the ship. Just as fire burst from the tower's base, Elias launched them into the stars, leaving the cursed world behind later in the quiet of space. Lyra stood beside the window, not the original, not the copy, just herself. She smiled at Elias, her voice soft and certain. I'm not her shadow anymore, she said. I'm me. He stepped beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. And that's all I ever wanted, he said. Behind them, the black ship drifted into the sun, burning away forever. The past was gone, the pain with it. But what remained was something stronger than memory choice, and the choice was this: she lived because he never gave up, because he believed, and because love, even across death and stars, was something no machine could destroy.